Hi, this is Nick Freitas, and welcome to Making the Argument. Today, we're going to be discussing the Colonial Pipeline crisis and what this has meant, how people have reacted to it, what's the government reaction been, price gouging policy. We're going to cover all of that, and we're going to do this in a way that I think has been largely lacking from a lot of the discussion on this issue. We're just going to have a calm, reasonable conversation on what happened, the response, and what can we do better going forward, all right? But before we get into that, I'm just going to ask you real quick, make sure that wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, watch it on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. It helps us put more information out there in the future. It lets us get this information out to a wider audience. All right, so the Colonial Pipeline, what exactly is it? So it's about a 5,500-mile pipeline that goes from the Gulf Coast all the way to New York. And it's pretty vital. It covers almost half, about 45% of the fuel consumption on the East Coast. So this is a vital artery with respect to getting gas to the gas station so we can all fill up our cars, trucks, etc. Right? That's what it is. So what exactly happened? Well, by now you've all heard that it was hacked. So obviously a lot of these systems are heavily dependent on computer programs which run it and make sure it's all managed efficiently. So the element that hacked it has been traced back to an Eastern European hacking group called DarkSide. And what's interesting is DarkSide put out, after all this was going and it caused all this problems for people, DarkSide said that, hey, look, we're not affiliated with any government, that they were just doing this to make money, and they even went so far as to say they weren't doing it to cause problems for society. They were just doing it to make money. So right off the bat, right, if you're looking for an argument on that one, it's pretty obvious. If the way that you're making money is by stealing things or shutting something down and then holding it ransom, that causes problems for society, all right? So I'm sorry, it's an either or proposition. If the way you're going to make money is by stealing, then you're going to cause problems for society, all right? Obviously, this caused a lot of problems because fuel is so integral to the way that we actually conduct business and run our economy. Now, so that's what happened. It was hacked with ransomware, which means that they had to go through this process of restarting their systems. There was essentially a $5 million ransom that DarkSide threw at the company in exchange for them allowing their systems to go back online. Now, obviously, from a government perspective, we have a long-term policy with the U.S. government that we don't negotiate with terrorists, we don't negotiate with criminal entities, because obviously this encourages more of the same behavior if they get what they want. Now, the report coming out now is that the company did pay the $5 million ransom. There's speculation they used cryptocurrency in order to do it, in order to just get everything back online. Now, again, we can make the moral argument all day long. I think this is bad policy because obviously, again, it incentivizes this sort of illegal behavior and incentivizes more people to get in the game if they actually see a payout. We actually saw something similar with respect to a lot of the oil tankers that were being hijacked by pirates, usually right around the Horn of Africa, as well as some other locations. And from the company perspective, they looked at it as a cost-benefit analysis. Is it costing us more to not be able to get our product to market than it would be to actually pay the ransom? And so in many cases, they actually paid the ransom, or their insurance paid the ransom, right? But again, there's both a moral component to this and there's an economic component to this. The moral component is you shouldn't reward bad behavior. The economic component has to do with supply and demand and the cost benefit analysis. But that's essentially the current state of where we're at right now, is that the pipeline is back up and it's running again. But obviously there's still going to be some delays with respect to getting gas to where it needs to be. All right, so what was the response to this? Well, obviously when you have a vital pipeline that's supplying 45% of the fuel consumption needs for the entire East Coast, this is going to create something of a crisis. And you had the reactions by the government, you had reactions by individuals, and you had reactions by the people that actually own the individual gas stations and things like that. And so let's look a little bit at the response. The government response included a couple of things. A lot of states declared a state of emergency. And whenever they declare a state of emergency, essentially certain policies go into effect. Some of those policies were potentially beneficial, some of them were harmful. All right, some of the beneficial policies that went into place, like in Georgia, they actually suspended the gas tax. Most people are not aware that a significant portion of the price you pay at the pump is actually a result of taxes. In fact, the profit on a dollar of gasoline sold at the pump is actually less than what the overall taxes that are paid at the pump. And most states, and to some degree the federal government, have taxes on gas, and ostensibly they're supposed to go to transportation projects or maintaining the roads or et cetera. And they've determined that to be a more efficient way to raise taxes. But there, again, in most cases, there are more taxes collected at the pump than there is actual profit gained from the people selling you the gasoline. So that's important to understand. So suspending those gas taxes temporarily can cause it can make it easier for people to be able to get gas to the people that need it. All right. So that's one potentially beneficial. At the federal level, Joe Biden actually suspended some of the environmental laws that went into getting gas to the pumps, getting gas to the gas stations. And again, removing regulatory barriers can also be beneficial on streamlining the supply process in order to make sure more of it gets to where it needs to be. Some of the other policies that went into place had to do with price gouging policy. And this is something I want to talk about because I think there's some confusion over this.